Thank you so much for listening to Breadwinning Mums. We really appreciate your continued support over the last year, and we're happy to announce that we have published the Breadwinning Mums book. Yay! This book is based on the conversations from the Breadwinning Mums Season 1 episodes. It highlights the candid journeys of each mums, as well as a golden nugget of wisdom from their life's lessons. Now is the perfect time to give the gift of the Breadwinning Mums book to the special mums in your life or to yourself. No matter where you are in life, I'm sure the practical tips within the Breadwinning Mums book will help you take your lives just a little bit further. Limited copies available, so order yours now at breadwinningmums.com. That's breadwinningmums.com. Coming up next on the Breadwinning Mums.
I would say trust your instincts, trust your gut, and don't accept no as an answer. Ask why.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Breadwinning Mums podcast. This is a place where we debunk the myths of working mums, cheer each other on, and show the world that you can be a mum and still pursue excellence in your chosen area of expertise. Today we're chatting with Carla Brown, the Vice President of the Personal Finance Society and the Managing Director and Chartered Financial Planner at Oakmere Wealth Management. Carla shared her life story about finding purpose in financial planning, building a successful business whilst weathering the storm of relationship separation, and thriving at work and at home with a partner who celebrates her success in work and in life. Here we go with Carla Brown. Hello, Carla.
Hello, Jane. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
I'm so excited for this chat. We obviously met during the MDRT annual meeting this year, where you presented and attended the Anzac night. That's where we actually met in person, and I met your lovely partner and had a really brief chat about your journey so far. But for those of us listening at the moment, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. So I've just turned 50. Bit of
Oh, wow.
Um,
Woohoo.
I am mum to Josh, who's 21. Recently moved in with my partner, Craig, and his 17-year-old daughter. So I've acquired a 17-year-old teenage girl in the house, which is interesting, challenging, and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I run my own business. So I founded my own company 2011. Started off working from home on my own, and I've grown the team. There's now 10 of us in the practice.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely love what we do. We're a financial planning practice. And then more recently, I've become involved in the wider profession in the UK. So I was appointed to the board of our professional body in 2023. We've got 40,000 members there. So I'm a non-exec director there. And recently this year was appointed vice president as well. So that's really exciting.
Congratulations. So when did you turn 50?
Last September.
Oh,
So I'm not sure if I'm
wow.
closer to 51 actually now, which is quite
You're looking,
scary.
You're looking really well and very fit from what I noticed from your LinkedIn profile. So well
Thank you.
done.
I do try.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I'd like to talk about your professional journey. So prior to establishing your own business, you were working with HSBC, I think. Um,
Correct, yeah. So, I mean, taking it right back to the start, I kind of fell into financial services straight out of university. I left uni with a degree in English literature and had no idea what I wanted to do. So just I knew I wanted to earn money,
yeah.
so just applied for anything and everything, and I got offered a job as an administrator in one of the life assurance companies near to where I lived, working in a pension review team. So this was dealing with the mis-selling scandal in the UK from the 1980s.
Oh,
But I had
wow.
no idea what a pension was.
Yeah.
So kind of learnt on the job. And then I got moved into the life assurance underwriting team there, which was more interesting. And it meant I got to speak to mortgage brokers who were chasing life assurance applications. And whereas I was sitting in an office every day just moving files around, they were getting out and talking to people and really making a difference. And I thought, this is what I need to do. I want to be out there. I want to talk to people. I want to make a difference to people's lives. So I applied for a role as a trainee financial planner with a company called Black Horse, who were part of Lloyd's back then, one of the other big banks. So they took me on, trained me up, stayed with them for quite a long time. They got taken over by another company. And then when I had my son, I asked, and I was one of the top advisors, I asked, could I do a 4-day week? So working full-time hours, but compressed hours, controlling my own diary. And they went, no, absolutely not. And I was like, okay, well, I know I can do my job in this time. So I thought, well, okay, it's time to leave. This is not the company for me. So I got taken on by another company who were much more progressive in the way that they dealt with things, allowed me to do my compressed week. And I was still, one of the top performers. And then got headhunted by HSBC latterly. So that was going back to about 2007. So just at the height of the financial crisis. So it was a good place to be during that, actually. Again, sort of working 4 days a week, which suited me perfectly. And then I just thought, I need to do this for myself now. I didn't like the way the banks were looking after the clients. To me, financial planning is about relationship building, and that's what I wanted to do. So I decided to go it alone. So I took the step to do it on my own. So my son was about 7 at that time, I suppose.
Yeah.
So it was a really exciting time.
Yeah. Amazing. Can you take us really, really back to the very young Carla? Did you know that you were going to be a mum?
I think I'd always wanted to be a mum. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember having conversations with my mum and saying, I absolutely wanted children and talking about, what that would look like and when it would be and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think I've always wanted to be a mum, definitely.
How old were you then? How old
And
was
it
the
hasn't been easy.
very first conversation?
Yeah, I don't remember the very first conversation, but I had I lost a baby when I was 26. That was my first
Oh,
pregnancy.
sorry to hear that.
So I was about 5 months pregnant when I lost the baby.
Yeah.
So that was a really traumatic time.
Yeah.
And after that, I think I was so traumatized by the whole experience. I thought I don't want children. And I kind of almost talked myself out of it. So it was purely by accident. A happy accident. I got pregnant again when I was 29, a couple of years later. And it was then I kind of realized, no, this actually is what I want. This really is what I want. I really want to be a mum. And I love being a mum. I always thought I'd have more children. My ex-husband didn't want any more children. He was adamant from the outset he didn't want children at all, actually. So it was a bit of a shock to have the first one. But no, I think it's a blessing now that Jess has come into my life, later on. But she's like the daughter I never had, which is lovely.
Yeah. Awesome. What about being a career person? Did you know that you were going to work on your career from way back when?
Do you know what? No, I didn't. I think because I left university not having a clue what I wanted to do, and I've never really known what I wanted to do. When I was kind of growing up, I thought, well, I might want to be a librarian because I like the idea of stamping books, or, a travel agent might be good because I like travel, or a lawyer or a journalist. I never really had a burning passion to do anything.
Yeah.
And so I kind of fell into it. I've always been quite driven. So whatever I do, I kind of throw myself into it 100%.
Mm.
So I suppose maybe it's no surprise, but I remember telling my mum that I wanted to be a mortgage advisor. So that was kind of my first step. And she said, oh, well, any old bimbo can do that. And I thought, hold on a minute, you don't know anything about that job.
Yeah.
And so I think it's made me determined. That
You were
one
trying to
comment
show
made me
your mom.
determined to show her,
Yeah.
actually, do you know what? I
Yeah.
can do this and I can do it really well.
Yeah.
Because I like to prove people wrong. I suppose I'm a bit contrary that way. If someone tells me I can't do something or whatever, then I think, do you know what? I'll show you.
Yeah. That is so awesome. I was just watching this conversation with Melinda French Gates and Reese Witherspoon, and she was just talking about this specific thing. Reese was saying, when somebody tells me no, I don't get despaired. I don't get depressed. I get angry. I'll show them. So
Absolutely.
and I think that's a great quality to have. I think anger has this certain energy that you can harness to really work towards something.
No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, throughout my career, setting up my business, I've had obstacles put in my way. And if somebody tells me no, rather than just accepting it or, sitting back and taking it, I just go, why not?
Yeah.
Why can't I do that? And I keep going, and I'll overcome the obstacles until I wear them down. And they're like, just yes.
Yeah. That is so awesome.
I see it as a challenge.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned that you started your business as you were leaving your first marriage. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So the two overlapped actually. So I was still married when I set the business up. And I think, with hindsight, looking back, I think my ex-husband didn't quite get that. He was ex-military, he was ex-police, very institutionalized in his upbringing, I suppose, and his outlook on life. And so for somebody to kind of go it alone and take a risk was a bit outside of his comfort zone. And very quickly the business became very successful. So I became the breadwinner in the house. I paid for all the nice stuff, and we moved house, and I kind of facilitated that and everything. And I think ultimately he probably resented it. I think, his job was a very male, testosterone driven role. And I think maybe my success made him feel a little bit emasculated.
Yeah.
So I think it certainly contributed to the breakdown of the marriage. We became a lot more distant. Obviously, I threw myself 100% into setting the business up and running the business. Also, being a mom.
Yeah.
Which, between the two things, very time consuming. And I think he just got left behind. Unfortunately, I think he resented my success.
Yeah. And
I remember I've been nominated for an award, and it was Charter Financial Planner of the Year within our network.
Oh, wow.
And it was the first time that award had been given. And I won. And I was so thrilled that I'd won. I'd really put myself out of my comfort zone. And I didn't even get a congratulations. And I just thought, you know what, that says it all. He doesn't actually encourage my success. In a way, he almost resented it, I think.
Oh, yeah. And that's probably another dagger to him, saying that that's probably just another chip on his shoulder.
Yeah,
wow.
I think that's probably a good point.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that it happened to you, but thank you for sharing. In terms of relationships, I think we mentioned on previous conversations about different types of relating and how certain things can happen within a relationship. I certainly have experienced verbal abuse, emotional abuse, anything of that sort. And I think it can be quite insidious in a way because you don't really see it. There isn't a substantial evidence that it happened or that it was happening. For you, did it take a while for you to notice exactly what was happening, or did you know from early on that what you were experiencing was in fact abuse?
I think think it took a while for me to realise. And I think it was over a prolonged, it was definitely over a prolonged period. So when I met my ex-husband, going back to the baby that I lost, it wasn't too long after that. So I think I was in quite a vulnerable position at that time. I'd gone through a trauma that I'd never thought I'd be able to get through, you know. And I met him, and I remember being quite impressed by him. He seemed really together, and he seemed very independent, and he knew what he wanted out of life. And I think at that time, that's possibly what I needed. I needed someone to kind of look after me, maybe take care of me. And so we worked to start off with. And at the time, you know, my earning capacity was a lot lower than his and all that kind of stuff. But I think I first noticed it when I was pregnant with Josh. And I've always been quite independent about money. And he was very careful with his money and quite secretive with his money. In fact, his mum used to joke and tell him that, well, I don't know if she was joking, actually, thinking about it, but she used to say that I was after his money. And I absolutely wasn't. I was after his money. I was with him for his money.
Oh, wow.
So he'd had that seed planted, I think, by his parents. So he was very careful with his money and didn't share what he had or what he was spending or anything like that. And so when I was on maternity leave with Josh, I'd saved up quite a bit of money to be able to look after myself during that period of time. But it came to a position where, you know, I thought, well, we're in this together. You know, it's our baby. We live together. He should be helping support me while I'm off.
Yeah.
But rather than, you know, him giving me an allowance or contributing, I had to ask him for money. And he would be very much, well, what do you need it for? You don't need this, you don't need that. And it made me feel really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of triggered some really unhelpful beliefs about money, I suppose, that I had. And it was at that point, so very, very early on, that I'd started seeing these behaviors in him that I didn't like. As a result of that, you know, when I went back to work, I've always now made sure that I can be financially independent and support myself. You know, that has left me with this sort of long-standing story that I've told myself now that I have to be financially independent, which is great. And that's been a great role model for Josh as well. But I think that was just the start of the behavior. And you know, over time, it just increased.
Yeah.
Until it got to a point where I thought, this just isn't healthy. You know, this relationship's not making me happy. You know, it shouldn't be like this. I should be with somebody who supports me, who encourages me.
And celebrates
you. He would never do anything with my friends. You know, he was quite isolated. And I would see friends in their relationships and think, you know, why have I not got that? You know, why don't I have that same level of support and unconditional love that other people have? And so it got to a position where it just wasn't tenable anymore. It was time to make some changes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think as a mom, it's always a hard decision to make, I'm not sure whether if it's ever crossed your mind. Did you ever think that you are breaking Josh's home by choosing yourself, even though, right?
Absolutely.
There's always that guilt.
I think that's why we stayed together as long as we did.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I thought, I can't do that to Josh. You know, he's got two parents, he's got a home. I can't break that up. Yeah. But it got to a position where I thought, this isn't good for anybody. It's better for him to have two parents living separately who are happy than two parents under the same roof who are making everybody miserable. And also a big part of my belief was, I don't want Josh growing up thinking that's how you treat your partner,
your loved one,
your equal. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I thought, if I'm going to be a role model for Josh and to treat him how actually to demonstrate to him how you should be treated or how you should treat your partner, then I need to actually live that. that was a big part of my decision, I suppose, to actually get to the end and say, right, that's enough.
Yeah. How long was the end?
Do you know, it kind of ended quite quickly in the end. I mean, I remember, so Josh would have been 15. So in his last year of high school, and I just thought, right, okay, I can stick this out until he finishes his end of year exams, gets through high school. That's a point then where it's going to be least disruptive for him.
Yeah.
And by this time, we were doing quite a lot separately as a couple. We'd always done a bit separately, but we were doing more so. And I remember going to Andy and saying, I was about to go on a skiing holiday. There's myself, Josh, one of my very good friends, and her daughter. We were going on holiday skiing as a four. And it was the night before we were going to go. And I remember going to Andy and saying, look, this isn't working. This was the February. This isn't working. We need to do something. You know, we need to talk about it, or we need to go to counselling. We need to do something to see if, you know, whether we make it or we don't.
Worth saving. Yeah.
And he just turned around and said, well, actually, I was going to move out next week while you're away.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. So the first I would have known about it is when I came home.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, I said, that you've made your position clear. I said, but I said, please put Josh first and let's just, you know, carry on until he finishes his exams. You know, give him some stability for the next 3-4 months until he's finished his exams. And then, you know, if that's what you want to do, then go. And so we just kind of limped through the next few months. Yeah. And then we told Josh, and he was less surprised than I expected. I think he already knew. Yeah. Kids have a way of knowing, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They're very insightful.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. How did it change the way you serve your clients as a financial planner? Being through a divorce, being through the upheaval of your finances and the emotionals and the parenting and everything that comes with it.
I think it's actually made me a better financial planner. Yeah. Because it allows me to have those conversations from a place of understanding. You know, I know what they're going through. I know what decisions they're going to have to make. I know what pitfalls to look out for. And whether it's the client themselves that's going through a similar situation, or even just talking to older clients about legacy planning, you know, just the statistics that 1 in 2 marriages ends in divorce. And I can now relate that back to my own circumstances and say, you know, nobody expects this to happen. You don't go into marriage thinking it's going to happen, but it clearly can. So I think it's made me better able to broach those conversations with clients.
That's great. Knowing what you know now, what would you do differently as you're getting into a relationship with Andy as a financial planner, from a financial planning point of view?
What would I do differently? I would, I don't know if this is from a finance point of view, because the financial separation was actually the easiest part of it. And maybe that's because of what I do.
It's the emotional.
But I wish I'd had the courage. Yeah, I wish I'd had the courage to end it sooner, I think. And ultimately, you know, in the end, it was him that called time on it. But I wish I'd had the confidence to do it sooner.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And now you are happily partnered with Craig. Can you tell us a little bit more about Craig? He's such a character.
He certainly is a character. Yeah. So I actually met Craig through work because, you know, after my marriage broke down, I had no interest in you know, another relationship. It was kind of the last thing on my mind. I wanted to focus on Josh and becoming independent and all that sort of stuff. And then met Craig actually at an MDRT conference in Hawaii. So I went all the way to Hawaii from the UK and met somebody from the UK. But he lived in a different part of the UK. And he'd been through a similar experience. He was going through divorce. So we just kind of clicked. We had a lot of shared experience. We do the same job as well. So it was really nice to be able to talk to somebody about work. And what is so lovely is that he's so supportive. You know, he encourages me to be better, to do better, which is so nice, so refreshing. There's no kind of jealousy or resentment or anything like that. You know, we're equals. And so for the first 5 years, 4 or 5 years of our relationship, he lived in one part of the country and I lived in the other, and we just saw each other
Oh,
at weekends.
okay.
And it
That's
worked really
nice.
well.
That's a nice way to
It,
ease in.
it was absolutely, because it
Yeah.
meant that, I still got a lot of time to myself,
Mm,
and with Josh, and he with his daughter. So that was really lovely. And then last
mm,
year we decided it was time to move in together. So he and Jess moved up to Chester, where I live, and
mm.
now the four of us all live together, which is lovely.
Yeah, that is
And it's
awesome.
bizarre
So,
because I've gone from a place where, Josh has been away at university for the last 3 years. So I've had 3 years almost living on my own,
oh
and now
wow.
I've got a house full again. So that's quite a shock.
Yeah. For everyone involved.
For everybody. Yeah. Turns out I quite like my own company.
Yeah, I can't fault you there. So the 4 to 5 years where you see each other on the weekend, that is quite a commitment to make. Do you fly over every alternate weekend or something and just take turns?
Pretty much, yeah. So it was about a 2 hour, 2.5 hour drive, I would say it was
Okay.
between our houses.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would literally just every other weekend. He and Jess would either come up here or I would go down there. Obviously, Josh
Yeah.
was away at university, or he's old enough to be left on his own if he was at home, so it didn't really affect his life too much. Other than when Jess and Craig arrived at our house at the weekends when he was home.
Yeah.
But no, it was lovely. If I had meetings down in London, I'd perhaps stay over there a couple of nights during the week as well. Um, but it was nice. I mean, it was quite difficult trying to organise diaries.
Mm,
Uh, you
yeah.
know, trying to fit in
Especially
personal
since you're both high
commitments.
achievers, you both have your own businesses, you're both,
Exactly.
very passionate about what you do.
Yeah. And trying to fit in, seeing family members, seeing
Mm,
friends as well when you're sort of only around half the time,
yeah.
became quite challenging.
Yeah.
But no, it worked. It was great. But the time had come where the commute up and down the motorway does get a
Yeah.
little bit
Well,
tiresome.
5 years.
Yeah, it was time to make a commitment.
Yeah. Okay. And how was it when you first met Jess? Was it a hard adjustment to make, or did it something that sort of happen naturally, gradually over time?
Yeah, do you know it was lovely. So Craig's got two daughters. One lives with the mum, one lives with us. And I met them
Twins, right?
both. Twins, that's right. Yeah, so I met
Yeah.
them both initially. Um, Sadly, one doesn't engage with us at the moment, so we just have Jess in our lives, which is lovely. Um, and the relationship, I feel really lucky because the relationship with Jess has been, on the whole, really easy.
Mm.
Um, it can be challenging. I mean, I parent very differently to Craig, so I think I'm
Mm.
stricter than he is.
Yeah.
He lets more go than I do. And Josh will say to me sometimes, "Why are you letting Jess get away with that? You'd never let me get away with that." So it's different when it's
Yeah.
not your own child.
Yeah. 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 You give them a bit more leeway.
Um, yeah, but no, Jess and I go away and we have girly weekends abroad together, just the two of
Oh,
us.
wow.
Um, you know, because she sees her mum once a month. She's with me the rest of the time. And I'm not trying to step into a mum's shoes by any stretch of the imagination, but I am there for her. She knows I'm there for her. If she needs anything, I'm there for her.
Mm.
Obviously, we bicker, as anybody who lives together does.
Mm.
But most of the time it's lovely. It's really
Yeah.
nice. And her and Josh get on really well together.
Yeah. That's
It's
good.
important.
How do you make a blended family work together? Do you parallel parenting? Do you parent your own? How do you make it work? Do you have a in-depth conversation beforehand with Craig?
I think we both know where the boundaries are. And I think because Josh was so much older when
Yep.
he met Craig,
Yep.
he hasn't really needed
Yep.
parenting
That
by
much.
Craig or even by me that much in the last few years. I mean, he has moments where, I have to step in and help him out with things, or he's got himself into a situation. And it's like, oh no, here we go again.
Yeah.
So he still gets into
21, Mum.
scrapes.
Give him another 4 years.
Exactly. Um, so he doesn't need much parenting, a bit of guidance every now and again, and he will go to Craig and ask his advice, which is lovely.
Yeah.
But we don't really have to step in and parent him at 21. With Jess, sometimes, I've had conversations with both of them about where the boundaries are, and they're both happy for me to step in and say something. If Jess does something that isn't appropriate or says something that isn't appropriate, then I've got permission to step in and tell her.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's Craig's decision how he deals with something.
Yeah.
But if it's in the moment, then, I will step in and say, Jess, that's not appropriate, or you can't speak like that, or you can't do that. Or she'll come to me, and, if Craig's away, because he tends to work away a couple of nights a week, so it's just me and her quite often. And she'll, can I go to the city with my friends? Then it's down to me to give her the permission to do that. So there is a delegated responsibility, which seems to work. We do clash sometimes because he deals with things differently to how I would.
Yeah.
I would pull her up on some things sometime that he would let her get away with. And so he'll
Yeah.
say I'm being a bit harsh, but I
Yeah.
think it's just learning.
Yeah. Okay. Do you still maintain relationships with your previous partners?
Interestingly, actually, it was Josh's graduation last week. So obviously Andy was there. And that's the first time I've seen him in probably 3 years.
Oh, wow.
But it was fine. There was no awkwardness.
Yeah.
And there's been no reason for us to communicate during the last 3 years. Josh is an adult.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah. Handing
parenting
over.
that's been
Yeah.
needed. There's unfortunately the situation with Craig's ex is very different. There's no communication there.
Okay. All right. I wanted to ask you about what life is like for you right now. As you mentioned before, you're the vice president to the board, you are running your own business, you have employees to look after, and a blended family to, keep everyone happy. What are you doing? Do you have any specific ritual that you do every week to keep like a balance is an overrated word, but to keep everything somewhat manageable?
I think you have a term that you use in your book, which is very apt, actually, controlled chaos.
Yeah.
That very much describes my life. Do I have a ritual? I think, yeah, my as I said before, I do quite like my own company.
Yeah.
And I've only discovered this later in life. I think when I was younger, I had to be around people all the time. I would never have a night in and spend time on my own. But I have realized now that I actually don't mind being by myself and doing things by myself. And obviously I travel on my own quite a bit with work. I like going for runs. That's my escape. If I am not able to get out and exercise 3-4 times a week, then the wheels may start to come off a little bit, because that is my time to think. That's my time to just focus on myself. And just to center myself. And I don't go far, I don't go fast. It's just getting out for 45 minutes, an hour, and just having that time to put everything in its place. And I run, I do trail running, so I'm off road, I'm in the forest, I'm in the fields. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. So that's kind of where I center myself. And I think this last year I've probably realized that more than anything, because I lost my best friend at the end of last year. She sadly died of cancer, and we've been friends for over 40 years. So the last year has been a really tough year, but it's made me appreciate what is important and make sure I spend time with the people that are important to me. So carving out more time for friends, more time for family, spending time with her children as well. I'm godparent to her children, so making sure I factor them in my life has become really important. And so I am somebody who needs structure in my life. I am controlled by my diary, and I like to be organized. So for me, I need to make sure I've got everything in place to be able to do that. But factoring in that time for me to be able to get out and run is so crucial.
Yeah. How far ahead do you plan your calendar?
Oh, weeks, months.
Okay. I got a feeling that might be the case.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty organized now. I'm probably to the end of the year, I would say. My diary's pretty organized.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. In fact, I'm
Okay.
already thinking about next year's holidays and where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, nice. You do a lot of keynote speaking in your role as a financial planner and vice president of the board, and especially towards encouraging more younger women to take on the role of financial planning. Can you tell us a
Yeah,
little bit more about that?
definitely. So this is something that I am so passionate about because
Mm,
I saw a stat very recently. I think only something like 16% of financial planners in the UK are female,
mm,
which is a shocking statistic.
mm,
It's such a good role for female
mm,
people. It allows you to control your own diary. It's your own destiny. You can help people, and that's something that as females we tend to be naturally good at, is helping
yep,
people. It
yep,
appeals to our probably more caring nature. We're
mm,
probably more empathetic than perhaps males can be.
mm,
And that's not to say there's some very, very good male advisors out there. I'm certainly not putting them down, but we need to address this balance and understand, why aren't women coming into our profession and what's the barriers? What are the obstacles that's stopping them? Is it the training? Is it the lack of roles available to them? Is it that they're coming into the profession but not staying? So if that's the case,
mm,
why aren't they feeling supported?
mm,
So I'm very much interested in being part of networks where we can share support and empower other females to actually be
mm,
successful in this job because it really is, um, as you know, it's a great job to be in.
yep,
It allows us to be a strong role model for our children, to be there for our families, but actually to make a difference to our clients as well and earn a good living from it.
mm, totally. Why do you think there has been such a low number? Obviously, in Australia, that's the case as well, but why do you think?
I think part of the issue is that, and I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but people tend not to come out of school or college or university wanting to be a financial planner. It tends to be
Yeah,
something they fall into later in life.
yeah.
So, in my opinion, we need to go right back to grassroots and start
Yep.
having more financial education in schools and
Which
actually
we don't
have
have
kids
in
coming.
Australia at the moment.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. We don't in the
mm,
UK. It's not on the curriculum at
mm,
all. So we need to be
mm,
talking about finances in schools. We need to be getting that education right from the outset.
mm,
We need to be, building it into the curriculum so kids are aware it's even a role. So
mm.
we've started with my business. We now go into careers fairs in schools and sixth forms and talk about what a role in financial services can look like and what the
Oh,
job what
wow.
the job actually is
Yep,
to try and just improve that knowledge and understanding.
yep.
Um, there are a couple of universities now in the UK that are offering degrees in financial planning and wealth management,
Mm,
which is really good, but people don't know about them.
yeah.
So we need to be educating earlier on. So people, as they come out of university and want to be a lawyer or an accountant, why don't they want to
Mm,
be a financial planner? So that's where we
mm,
need to start.
mm.
I think, certainly I think with females, particularly once they start having a family, the confidence starts to go a little bit. If you've been
Yep,
out of work a little while,
yep.
it's difficult to get that confidence back. And then to start doing the studying when you've got a young family, it's a lot to take on. So we need to think about how we can support females to make that better, to make that easier for them, more accessible.
Mm,
In the UK, there's a few academies now where people can retrain as financial planners. But then it's thinking about, okay, when you come out of the academy, what support have you got behind you then? So
yep.
are you going on
To
your
enter
own
the
or are you joining a
workplace.
larger firm? Because that's
Yep,
actually where people will then fail. So
yep.
we need to make sure they've got a support network around them to make sure they continue to be a success once they come out of that academy.
Mm, awesome. In your couple of decades worth of experience as a financial planner and someone who has started and stumbled into financial planning, what qualities do you have as as a female financial planner that you think has contributed to your success?
That's really interesting because I think it's changed over
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
I think early on, as a 23, 24-year-old financial planner, um, at that point in your career, I think you worry about being taken seriously.
yeah,
Are people going to take financial advice from a 23, 24-year-old with no life experience? Yes, I own my own house. I knew what a mortgage was, knew what a pension was, but I hadn't actually any lived experience really at that point.
yeah.
So I think at that point, it becomes very much about becoming the authority in the room. So I focused early on getting very qualified very quickly. I wanted to be not the smartest person in the room, but the most qualified, because I was at that point as well, I was quite often the only female in a team of men, much older men typically.
Yeah.
I think later on, what's changed is I focused more on the soft skills. So we're very early on, it was about becoming knowledgeable, becoming qualified, becoming technically competent and technically excellent. Latterly, it's become more about actually what's the behavioural coaching that I need to learn to be able to become a better financial planner. And I think the biggest skill I've learned is listening. Asking the questions and then listening to the client and actively listening, because I think naturally as financial planners, we want to solve problems, but sometimes we're not solving the right problem.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to probe deeper with your client to find out actually what is the root problem, what's driving their beliefs, what's really important to them. And you only get that by allowing the client to talk.
Yeah.
And so that's been the biggest learn, I think, later on in my career.
Yeah. And it's such a nuanced thing. Sometimes a client comes in and you think you're solving problem A, but after you have those conversations and probe more questions, you realize that it's got nothing to do with A. It's multi-layered, as you mentioned.
That is so true. And, it can be so far removed from what they've originally come in with, but it is getting to the root cause of the problem and understanding what's driving them, what's important to them.
Yep. And even once you know what the root of the problem is, sometimes they have their own biases that you may or may not be aware of. And sometimes the solution that we present may not be in line with those biases. And so you need to address those biases, which you may not discover until you ask those questions. So yeah, it's a very interesting.
It really is.
dynamic.
I did a coaching course during COVID, actually. It was a certificate in relational financial coaching. And that was all about how we have these conversations with clients about going back to their very early money beliefs and, talking to them about the families, because, we learn our belief systems so early on in our life. And that creates the biases that we grow up with and the stories that we tell ourselves. And sometimes it's unpicking those stories and actually, understanding, are they true or is it just something that we've been told? Really having those conversations with clients, which, is what I find really interesting these days.
Yeah, I know. It's so exciting. Like a lot of financial planning is life coaching. Finance is just maybe 10%, 20% of it, but there is a lot more to it than what people can imagine.
Definitely. And one of my mantras is people, not products.
Yeah.
The products are just the tools. They're what we put in right at the very end to fix the problem once we know what the problem is. Early on, it's all about the people. It's about the person that's sitting in front of you and what matters to them.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So over the past couple of decades, you built your business, you've weathered some storms personally and professionally. What's life like ahead for you over the next 10, 20 years?
Wow. It depends what day you ask me on, actually. So I'm really enjoying what I'm doing at the moment. So in my business, I've brought in currently 2 other financial planners who are working alongside me. And I've shared out my client base. So I deal with a smaller number of clients now, which allows me to focus on some of the other things I'm doing. So, for example, working with the PFS board. And I'm really enjoying being part of that bigger picture and helping to hopefully shape the future of financial planning in the UK and, trying to be a good role model for perhaps people who are, trying to get established in financial planning. I enjoy working as a mentor with other financial planners. But I'm also really conscious, and I think this is probably, since turning 50 and with losing my friend, that we don't know how long we've got. And I want to do what I talk to my clients about and get out there and enjoy life. So I've always wanted a gap year.
Yeah.
So I've always said at 55, I'm going to have a gap year. I'm going to travel. So I really want to make that happen. Now, it may be I don't do it all in one go. Perhaps I stagger it over a couple of years and do it in bits. But I really want to see the world. And I think I'll be, if I get to my end of my days and I haven't sort of been everywhere I want to go, I'm going to be really annoyed. So I've got a lot I still want to do.
Yeah.
But I want to stay fit. I want to stay healthy. I want to stay running for as long as I can. I want to stay active. These are the things that are really important to me. I want to see the kids grow up and become independent in their own rights. And, I remember when Josh first went away to university and I was, bereft. I got empty nest syndrome. But actually, I realized the importance of that. Just shows what a good job you've done in that you've made them into such an independent young adult that they can go off and do that. And actually, I got a lot of pleasure out of seeing him grow and flourish and get his wings. And hopefully we'll have the same with Jess. So that's really exciting. With the business, I don't know. I'm looking at succession. I'm wondering what that looks like at this point. I honestly don't know. I'm trying to bring in new talent. We're just about to launch a graduate program in the business.
Wow.
So
Great.
bringing new talent very young.
Yep. Good on you.
That will be the future of our business.
Yeah. That is excellent. What's on your gap year list?
Well, I've always wanted to work with street kids in Cambodia. I went there on holiday with Josh and Andy years and years ago. And there was just these gangs of kids. They were selling stuff, but actually, because Josh was the same age as them, they just wanted to play and they didn't really know how to play. And so we'd play catch with them, or we'd teach them a card game or something. And then they'd have to go because they were being watched by whoever was controlling them. But in those kind of snatched moments, we had some real quality time with them. And I just think, I'm getting to a stage now in my life where I'm going to have more time to do these kind of things. And these kids just want time.
Yeah.
And if I can just go and, perhaps teach them the value of play or just spend some time with them and give something back through a charity, then I'd really like to do that. So that's something I want to explore.
Wow. That is so awesome. I interviewed another mum, Julie Parkinson, where she's the chair of Mother's Heart, I think, an organization that looks after women with emergency pregnancy in Cambodia. So I'll connect you to
wow,
if
that'd
you'd
be
like.
a good connection.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
All right. If you could give your younger self one advice, I guess that Carla who just graduated from English literature degree and not knowing what to do with her life, what one advice would you give that young Carla?
I would say trust your instincts, trust your gut, and don't accept no as an answer. Ask why.
Nice. And one question that I always ask all mums is, what's your alpha mum song? So if you have a deadline at work, your kids are giving you hell and you don't feel well yourself, what one song do you play on the back of your mental mind to make it through the week?
So my go-to song, and this is whether it's in those moments or whether I'm trying to encourage myself to get running, if when I just sat out and it's feeling a bit tough, or if I'm skiing or something, it's I've Got a Feeling, Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's nice.
Tonight's going to be a good night.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that.
Indeed.
Okay, Carla. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time and your wisdom today. I really appreciate you spending this time. I hope to keep in touch, and hopefully you'll, during your gap year, you can visit us in Australia.
I would love to. And thank you for having me on today, Jane. It's been great talking to you.
This episode of the Breadwinning Mums was produced by me, Jane Lim, and our theme music was produced by Sam McNally. We recorded this episode on the lens of Darug people who have passed their parenting story for generations. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and thank them for caring for country. Connect with us through LinkedIn or Instagram at Breadwinning Mums. Until next time.